Hi, it's Muzz iEvolve from iEvolve.com. Thank you for being here again this week. This is the last one of these sessions I'll do. Next time you see me, I'll be channeling. That's the plan. So we've settled into a really nice place here in Mexico. It's basically, we've got like this massive private park. I guess it's like sort of, 5 acres, all surrounded by a 10-foot wall. And we've got a 2-bedroom place. This is like a shrine behind me. You can see there's another sort of like a head over there. This kind of stuff is all over the place here because this place is used for Mexican sort of pre-Hispanic rituals. And we're the only ones here. Besides one caretaker, we're the only ones here. So we have this beautiful place with all this really authentic cultural stuff all to ourselves. It's like a private park. So I'm walking Bengo several times a day, and I don't even walk at the front gate because this place is big enough that I can easily take him for quite a distance of a walk. It's amazing. And the rent that I'm paying here is equivalent to what I was paying for 3 days in Toronto. It's really amazing. So today I wanted to talk about the moon. And the moon is fascinating because there are just so many things about the moon that don't add up. And you may not be aware that there is evidence of a pre-moon culture. So there is like evidence of early human culture preceding the arrival of the moon. And so they talk about when there was no moon, and then they talk about the arrival of the moon. So it hasn't always been there. So how did it get there? Did it come naturally? Did someone bring it? What's the story? So let's look at the anomalies and then we can make a decision. So the first thing which is interesting about the moon is that it is much closer than it should be. So they have rocks from the surface of the moon, and based on the weight and density of these rocks, if you extrapolate that that's what the moon's made from, then the moon, based on gravitational physics, should be much further away than it is to be maintained in the gravitational orbit around the Earth. But if it's going to be as close as it actually is, then it should be much smaller. Or it isn't made of the same stuff that they found in these rocks. That it's much lighter, and if it's lighter, then what does that mean? Is it hollow? Well, sure, that's a possibility, but there is evidence supporting that, because NASA crashed one of their modules into the surface of the moon. When they'd finished with it, they just crashed in there just basically as an experimentation to see what would happen. And NASA reported that the moon rang like a gong for an hour. So it's like boom for an hour. Now, what? Planets don't ring like a gong or ring like a bell, but the moon did. So that would suggest that perhaps it has a metallic-like substructure which was vibrating, and then the heart is hollow, which became like a resonant chamber. So then you have this, this ringing like a bell effect lasting for an hour. So what that really infers is that the moon is artificial. Now, is that something that's really unique in the universe, like an artificial moon? I would say no. I would say when you consider that, how far away we are from the center of our galaxy, that there are planetary systems that have been around literally for billions of years. We've been around here for the age of our galaxy, we've been around for Earth has been around for about half of that time. So imagine the planets that were the earliest to form. There are probably species that have continued that are now have a history of billions of years. Ours is like 1 million, 2 million at tops. That's if you believe some of the sort of the frontier type thinking. But otherwise, they say that the first civilization was 5,000 years ago, which is just crazy. It's insane. I just don't believe that's true. Anyway, so if you have an artificial moon in other places, well, then is there evidence of that in our solar system? And yes, there is. Saturn has a moon which is called Iapetus. And Iapetus has a ridge going around the equator. And this ridge is 13 kilometers high. So it's like right on the equator, going right around. It's like 75% of the equator of Iapetus has this 13-kilometre high ridge. So it's like they've got two halves, pushed them together, and then welded it or sealed it in somehow. And that's what creates the ridge. And the 25% where it isn't present, that could be perhaps explained by earthquakes, landslides, meteor, asteroid impacts. So there's something in our solar system other than our moon which leans towards the idea that the moon is artificial. But there's even more evidence in that, because when you have a full solar eclipse and the moon passes in front and blocks the sun, it only blocks the body of the sun. So the body of the sun goes black, and yet the corona, or the flames that are leaping off the surface of the sun, they're still visible. Now, if you were an alien species of advanced technology and you wanted the local primitive, beings on a planet to think that you're a god, what better way to demonstrate your godliness than to block out the sun? But blocking it out in a way that these less intellectual beings wouldn't just go, oh, it's night. They would instead see it's the sun, but the sun has gone black, because you can still see the flames around the outside. Now that's really demonstrating the power of a god, because it's precision physics to get the moon to be in that exact position that from the surface of our planet, it blocks only the body of the sun. The idea that's just occurred naturally, that's quite a stretch in my opinion. But then when you sort of keep piling on this evidence, and it becomes even more and more unlikely that it's a natural body. So everybody knows that the moon doesn't rotate, right? So that's why we always see the same cycle, it doesn't rotate. Well, look at this. Okay, so just say this is the sun. Just say this is the Earth. Okay, and this is the moon, right? So the moon's going to go around. It's not going to rotate. It's not going to rotate on its axis. Okay, so it's just got this. But you see what's happening? So when the moon is here, my pad is visible from the surface of the Earth. But when I come around here, my nail is now visible from the surface of the Earth. So if the moon didn't rotate, you would still see all of it at different locations on the Earth. What's happening instead is that the moon is rotating at exactly the precise speed such that only one side is ever visible from the surface. Okay. Now you got to consider, what are the chances that our moon is rotating at the exact speed so that one surface is only ever visible, while at the same time it is the perfect distance between the Earth and the sun to block only the body of the sun and not the corona during a full solar eclipse. It's astronomically unlikely that has just occurred naturally. So, if it is artificial, then it was brought here, then you've got to assume that some remnant of that society, or someone else at least, has now come and occupied whatever technology was there. And that's it's on the far side of the moon. That's why the moon only ever shows one side, because on the other side, it's probably a metropolis. It's probably like a lot of activity going on. But even on this side, which we can see, there are many, many sightings of craft traveling across the surface of the moon. These videos are so easy to find, just like amateur astronomers who are using just like a camera with a long lens, or they add a camera to the telescope, and you can see these craft actually traveling across the surface of the moon. So there is something going on up there. And if you want to go down the rabbit hole, there is like a legend that the Nazis, when they developed their Bell craft, this is known, we know they developed these bell-shaped craft which were operating on the basis of anti-gravitics, like the Via-Spanas, like they spoke about in India, that they were building like 1,000 years ago, and that the Nazis went to the moon and built a base. Now, this is really getting out on the edge of what you're willing to believe, but there is some idea, there's some evidence that something like that occurred. But I would say almost certainly, if not then the humans are there now. And I would say they're sharing that space either leasing it or they're in some type of agreement with the beings that were already there, who were here observing and whatever else they're doing in our solar system on that side of the moon. And this idea that, you know, there's the side of the moon that we can see and then there's the dark side of the moon. I mean, this is just a red herring to make us think, oh, there's nothing there. It's just like a dark, you know, never sees sunlight. But that's of course not true. If you imagine that imagine my head is the sun, all right? And so this is the Earth, all right? And this is the moon. And so when it's here, so my nail is the far side of the moon, the side we never see, all right? So there it is, that's right, it's the dark side of the moon. The sun's not getting anywhere near that, okay? But look, when it comes around here, it's now in direct, you know, it's in direct path of the sun. So the dark side of the moon is now fully illuminated by the sun. So it's not the dark side of the moon, it's just misdirection. And finally, if you get onto YouTube, I'm not sure if it's on YouTube anymore, maybe if you go to BitChute, you can find a video which is called Wave Across the Surface of the Moon, or Moon Wave. And this occurred, I don't know, within the last decade, 5 years maybe, that some amateur astronomer was just filming the moon with his long-range camera, and he caught a wave going across the surface of the moon. Like not a water wave, but like a ripple in the image of the moon. And you can say, well, you know, he probably did that in his software. Sure, it's possible, it can be done in software, but multiple people in different locations around the planet were filming the moon at the same time, and they all caught this same thing. And so what it looks like is what we're seeing isn't in fact the surface of the moon, but is instead a holographic projection of an empty, sterile surface of the moon. And whatever technology is projecting that hologram had some kind of power surge which created a ripple. And this ripple, I think it took like 10 seconds or something, 5-10 seconds to travel like slowly across the full surface of the moon. And that's what it was. And so you got to assume that the holographic image we're seeing is serving the purpose of shrouding whatever is underneath there, whatever's really going underneath there. And that's something you can find. That video is actually available right now. And when it was first released, people were getting banned from YouTube, getting kicked out of social media for sharing this video because they didn't want people to know. But it's not a hot topic anymore. It's kind of died down, and so no one really seems to care anymore. But I looked it up recently, and it is still there. You can still see it. It's not dramatic, but just when you consider what it means, that there's a wave traveling across the surface of the moon, so it's like, I'm looking at an image. I'm looking at something which is projected to shroud whatever it is that's underneath, which is really kind of it's a mind-blowing idea. So, but as usual, us Earth humans are the last ones to find out. And and that's why it's so great that we can do things like channeling and remote viewing and so on, so we can get some of these insights which the elites are unwilling to share with us. Okay, so next time I see you, I will be doing an actual channeling, and I just want to let you know that we're going to start the course, the How to Channel course, at the beginning of next week. I'm going to provide more details to the people who have already enrolled. So if you are holding off, waiting to enroll at the last moment, this is your final opportunity to get it at this price. This will be the last time it's ever this price, okay? I shouldn't say never. Perhaps in the future, who knows, maybe it will be. But certainly in the immediate future, the price is going up. Okay, so if you want to get in at the 50% off price, you have about 1 week left to do that. And I'm going to put the link below this video so you can go there now, click on it, and you can join the email series which teaches you all about the course, or you can just go straight to the course and sign up. Okay, right, thank you very much. It's been great to see you again, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye.